Thank you, dear Henry. Thank you to the whole of your team in organizing this event. We need more events like this. As last 6 months, I feel more like an ambassador to Chaoyang than an ambassador to China in general. Even going to Shunyi is an adventure. President Lin, thank you for your inspiring speech at the beginning. Basically, as a matter of fact, the last big event I participated was your event, your famous Imperial Springs Forum in December. And you remember we all barely returned to Beijing because of one single case that appeared in Guangzhou. So it's really adventurous here to travel and move out of Chaoyang. But coming back to the topic of the roundtable today, and coming so late in the order of speakers, I'll just mention several points that I would really like to highlight. First and foremost, I think we should all agree that without multilateralism, without multilateral institutions, this world cannot move forward. The spirit of cooperation cannot move forward. And we often hear true multilateralism, this multilateralism. I would say this is a false conversation. The multilateralism that we need is an effective multilateralism with the UN system, with the UN at its heart, with the whole set of international law that this system has established, that in particular smaller countries like my country definitely cherish. And without this system, definitely so many achievements that all of us achieve, smaller countries achieve, would not be there. We should all fight against this notion that might is right, might is not right, law is right. What we see for the last couple of months with the Russian war on Ukraine, basically this is not only Russian war on Ukraine, this is Russian war on Europe. This is with such a wide effects felt all over the world, and this has to be clearly said, is something what's such an assault on the global system, on the system of international law. Coming back to the notion of globalization, and many colleagues mentioned that earlier, globalization has been changing even before the pandemics. There was big discussion about winners and losers of globalization that had some serious consequences in many political systems, particularly in the West, that produced some different electoral results. But quite certain pandemics only accelerated some of the underlying trends and processes that were already there. Globalization was really in an upswing, but like in many processes, pendulum moves into one direction and then starts moving into the other direction. What certainly will be left after these pandemics, I would say that many things will go for the, not only on focusing on the return on your investment and optimization of resources, but there will be certain securitization of many processes. There will be more focus on resilience. So, and I'm quite certain that we'll all have to take that into account. Basically, if we continue with an old motto that was applied, I would say, in fighting pollution and in some other areas, but I think it can be applied to globalization to come. If we continue to think globally, just to continue thinking globally, though acting locally, in some ways, we would be able to preserve the globalization for the better times than to come, and for this pendulum to go further. Coming to the situation here, focusing on the mobility, and here I fully have to underline what my Swiss colleague, Italian colleague, French colleague mentioned in this regard. We are greatly affected ambassadors. We are the biggest supporters of mobility, of people-to-people contact in all the fields, from economy, culture, science, name it, sports, name it. And unfortunately, the pandemic and all the restrictions instigated seriously affect our work here. But it has, what was mentioned as well earlier, it has severe effects on political communication as well, because this cannot be replaced by Zoom meetings for eventuality. People-to-people contacts, informal discussions without anyone else present, sharing meals. Coming from Chinese culture, you know how that is important. Without these discussions now for several years, this kind of interaction, and I don't count in this bubble visits to China. This is not the same thing. Without this, basically, you have this sense of growing apart. And then this sense of growing apart creates such a great grounds for misunderstanding, misinterpretation, miscommunication, and unfortunately, mistrust. This is what we really have to try to overcome, and not going into any country's domestic policies in fighting the pandemics. Croatia is fully open. This summer, we expect even to have greater number of visitors than in 2019. But this has to be taken into consideration, not only in this forum, but in many, I would say, political considerations here. What are the effects of the domestic policy on the perception that is growing about China in the world, and how this takes further our cooperation with China? I see that my time is up. Okay. So I would stop on that note. Once again, thanking you for the event, and we really have to talk more about many things that you are starting today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.